G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Just about to go for a ride to town on the bike. Thought I'd take you along. And today you get to see the first, hopefully, successful run of the Seebackroscope. This is the backpack, and that is the highly modified Mark III version of the chest mount, which is good in as far as it goes, but I thought I'd like to show you what the view looks like from behind. So attached to the back of the backpack we have this little device, and I'll be honest with you, the hardest part about it is reaching around behind you and finding the unpause button to start off without jiggling and joggling the camera and knocking it into extreme telephoto mode and getting a close-up picture of the road 5 metres behind the bike. So today is going to be the 4th attempt, and then of course when you get to the other end you got to reach around and try and find the pause button. Therefore last night I took to it with a saw and a file, and I cut a bigger knot for my finger to fit into. So we'll see how that goes. The plan is for me to explain the motorcycle loophole theory. Testing, handheld at the gate. Okay, mounted on my back, should be pointing roughly at the motorbike. Hopefully this is going to work. I had one full start here at the gate, had to take the whole bloody lot off and slightly fine tune it all, get it all to go again. Now you get to watch the gate while I put the helmet on. Might have to come up with a different spot for that microphone in the fullness of the time, but for today that'll do. Gauntlets going on. Sunglasses are in place and they're fogging up already. I cannot pretend that preparing to ride the bike is anything quick. You have to get everything just so. Okay, bike on, ready, go. Now ideally you're getting a pretty good view of the gate. We've had a fair bit of rain here, but it was nearly a week ago. However, my driveway hasn't recovered, and my neighbour's driveway's still got some mud pies on it. So, assuming that the Seebackroscope is going all right, looks like you might even get to see a little baby bar lamb or two. And I think I'm going to go over this side rather than through the mated pie. I always come up the hill on the high side, which is over here, and go down the hill on the muddy side. But being trap rock takes a long time to dry out, and because the next door neighbour's quarry has a lot of clay in it, it was originally a brick making quarry. They managed to put all the fine clay right up on top of the hill where the spring from my place runs into it, which causes difficulties. Would have been a little bit better if they could have picked part of the quarry that had more gravel in it. But anyway, such is life, as Ned Kelly said. Now, motorcycle loophole theory. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm sure you've heard of loopholes, which individuals discover in various legal mechanisms which allow them to do something that they want to do, which at some point a legislator thought might not be a clever idea, and opinions differ. So at the moment we're doing 26 kilometres an hour, and that's roughly the speed at which this machine would have a range of 100 kilometres. Average speed of 40 kilometres an hour, you'd have a range of 75. And when I bought this, it was sold to me as a electric motor scooter. Somebody told me that it was a moped, but a moped has pedals as well as a motor, so I don't think this is actually a moped, I think it's a motor scooter. And motor scooters for a very long time, since probably the 1940s, in New South Wales, they've been a motorcycle which has an engine of less than 50 cc's, cubic centimetres, and notionally they weren't able to go any more than 30-35 miles an hour. Well, two things are different about this. On the one hand it's calibrated in metric, and on the other hand it's electric. So to get your electric motor scooter to not go faster than 50 kilometres an hour, they give it a homologation circuit, and I didn't invent that word, that's what they call it in the manual. And the homologation circuit won't let it go any faster than 45. And my experience is that the sort of micrometer vernier control on the homologation circuit is a bit iffy. My first speed controller, on the top 10% of the battery, it went better than 45, it did 49. And I have ridden it for 60 kilometres and come home with 33% of the battery remaining when I did the whole thing in economy. I've come back twice with around about 28 or 30% when I did more of the ride in sport. And then after 4,500 kilometres, 4,330 to be precise, the old speed controller died. And I was absolutely delighted when the importer sent me a brand new speed controller for free, despite the fact that the speed controller, the whole bike, was 6 months out of warranty. And then when I took it out on the road, I was absolutely crestfallen to find the new speed controller on a full battery wouldn't go any faster than 46. And worse than that, the first speed controller used to let me roll down a hill at, 50, 51, 57 occasionally. The new speed controller did seem to consider that its job was to stop me from exceeding 46 kilometres an hour, never let me get to 50, and even when the battery was full and you couldn't use regenerative braking, it would act to stop you from rolling faster than 47. And I got a bit cranky with that idea. 4,500 kilometres worth of experience on the bitumen road had taught me that there are times when it's bloody dangerous, man, on a 100 kilometre an hour road, doing 45 kilometres an hour and getting off outside the fog line every time. But that's what I had to do because I was riding a motor scooter and that's what it was registered as. So I hatched a plot inside my own head to contact the Department of Roads and Maritime Services and offer to pay the extra $150 in registration fee between having a motor scooter and a motorcycle. I thought I'd better cover my bases. Maybe I've got to go to the Member of Parliament and do it at a governmental level rather than a departmental level. So to line me ducks up in a row, I rang up the importer to see what he thought. And he said, well, part one, line one, it won't do you any good to talk to the New South Wales Department of Roads and Maritime Services because it's got nothing to do with that, which was a surprise to me. But the way it works, it turns out, is that it's the federal highway code which is your problem, and the federal highway code says that if you're a motorcycle you have to be able to go on the freeway at 110 kilometres an hour, and you've got to sustain that pace, and then you've got to be able to perform an emergency braking manoeuvre from 110 kilometres an hour, which would be pretty bloody exciting. And it's a fairly reasonable chain of thought as far as I'm concerned. Okay, now here, I don't want to have that fella come up my arse in 500 metres time. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to let that bloke go past. And then I will enter the slot, and the slot's 750 metres long, and it's going to take me about 40 seconds to get through it, or it would if I was entering it from cruise speed. And I can already see someone behind me, and I think I'll probably get out before he gets to me, but otherwise I'm going to have to go over there on the fog line and hope that he doesn't run over me. And that is frightening for me, and it's irritating and frustrating for them, and I think I'm going to make it. But I'm going to get over here anyway just to show you what it's like. And I've got one coming at me too, so this is exciting. See that? I friggin' hate that. And if you think that was bad, how would you like to do that with a B-double up your arse at twice your speed, more than twice your speed, and another one coming the other way? And it's not very much fun for the two blokes in the B-doubles either, because they're at risk of a head-on collision, whereas I'm only at risk of getting run over from behind. So anyway, I explained all this to the importer, told him how I thought it'd be a hell of a lot better if I didn't have to duck and dodge quite as hard. I said if I had the same ability to ride at the pace that an off-road version of the bike does, I'd be doing 60 kilometres an hour, and I'd be through the whole highway in 2/3 of the time. I'd be 2/3 of the time inside that, the slot as I call it, between the guardrails, 30 seconds instead of 40 seconds. And if I'm halfway up the slot and somebody enters it, I'd be able to open the taps up and accelerate to 75 kilometres an hour, maybe 80 depending on the day, how good the battery is, and I wouldn't be getting run over. I'd be out of the slot before they get there. Now here we come up to something that's even worse, because it hasn't got a double centre line. This bridge has got a single narrow little centre line. And I don't want to get into arguing with them. Because there's not much room for error on the bridge either. So I explained all that. Tried to talk the importer into talking the manufacturer to doing something about it. He said, well, the difficulty is to do an emergency stop from 110 kilometres an hour, you need what they call central braking system fitted. And central braking means that if you have a panic attack and you squeeze both your brake handles, as soon as your back wheel starts to break traction and lift off the ground, your front wheel is automatically taken over by a computer, and it stops you from losing control of both wheels at once. Now, once upon a time on a bicycle, I used to be able to use my caliper rim handbrakes, and an emergency stop would involve me coming to a full stop with my back wheel about 15 centimetres off the ground, and after I stopped, then the wheel would drop down. Oh, we've got a bit of a bloody comedian here. And there was a 0.4 of a difference in how hard you squeezed your handbrake as to whether you
did a perfect emergency stop with your back wheel 6 inches in the air, or whether you went straight over the handlebars and landed on the road and you got a motorbike, a bicycle for a tampon sort of thing. So I explained all that to him and he said, look, they're just not going to do it. He said, to have your motorcycle registered, unless it's got a front wheel larger in diameter than 21 inches, you've got to have central braking fitted, and if you want central braking, you want to do 110 kilometres an hour on the freeway, he said, go and buy a Komodo, $17,000 and 128 kilograms. And I tried to explain that lots of people would be interested in buying these bikes if you're allowed to ride them on the road as fast as you can ride them off-road. And he said, well, yes and no. He said, in Queensland, you don't need a licence for a motor scooter. Let that sink in. No licence required for a motor scooter in Queensland, and he said he thought Western Australia was the same. So that sort of opens up the market a bit to everybody who's lost their licence and they want to be motorised somehow. He said the other people who buy them are sheep farmers who don't want to frighten the livestock, but some of them, they have to ride from one paddock to another paddock and go on the public road, and they want to have a registered bike to do it. So they buy them. And he said the other people who buy them are shooters in the state forest and tourists in the national park. Both those government organisations allow you to ride around on motorbikes as long as they're road registered motorbikes. And if they're road registered, that means the number plate carries an insurance policy, and when the motorcyclist falls off and breaks their leg, the insurance policy from the number plate pays for the helicopter to take them home and go fly to hospital. Without having the state forest and parks and wildlife having to pay for the extraction. All that sounds pretty good. And he said, most of the people who buy them like that, they buy them as supplied, and then they cut the speed sensor wire to the electric speed controller. And I said, what does that do? And he said, then the speed controller doesn't know anything about what the bike's actually doing. So in economy it'll only do 44 like it's doing right now. And then if you get it into sport, you're on a different machine. And I reckon this is a bit safer. At 79 when I got to go that fast, unless I had someone on my tail. My idea of a reasonable speed is this, 60. And as you can guess, the speed sensor wire has had a vasectomy on my machine. Now that brings into play the question of, is it legal? And now we get into the idea of what is the court going to say? You'll notice I slowed down once I got off the road because that makes the overtaking manoeuvre occur much faster if I'm doing 40 than if I'm doing 60. So we get back to what's in a person's real mind. Are they intending to commit a crime? What is the mens rea, as the barrister said to the magistrate? And in my mind, I have no intention to commit a crime. And the crime that I do not want to commit is the crime of riding a motor scooter that will not sustain 110 kilometres an hour and cannot perform an emergency stop from such an unattainable speed. I don't want to ride that on a freeway or a motorway or an expressway. I partly because I have not got enough battery range to ride the thing far enough to get to a bloody freeway. The other point is that here in New South Wales, speed limits are placed on the road or they're placed on the licence. And I'm riding on a red provisional licence which entitles me to ride at anything up to and including 90 kilometres an hour, which is 10 kilometres an hour faster than the bike is capable of going. If that makes sense. So I'm not intending to break the New South Wales highway speed limit or the speed limit in town. I'm not intending to break the speed limit on my licence, and I'm not going to take the motor scooter on the freeway. And yesterday, just about here, there was a radar trap on the left-hand side of the road, and I went through the radar trap at 80 kilometres an hour, and the highway patrol went past me the other way, and the highway patrol did not light up like a lollipop machine. And he did not do a U-turn, and he did not chase me, and we didn't have an argument. And I wasn't going fast enough to trigger the radar trap, and I had a very pleasant trip to town. But the camera didn't work. Today I'm hoping the camera works. So there you go, and now you know, and you've actually seen what the difference is between riding it as if it's a motor scooter that's homologated to 45, or riding it as if it's a gutless motorcycle that won't do faster than 80, and you keep the thing slowed down to about 60 for most of the time because you don't want to suck the battery dry. I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty reasonable compromise. I tried very hard to be a law-abiding citizen for about 5,000 kilometres. And at the 5,100 kilometre mark, I decided I was going to be a little bit of a citizen in the loophole. Braking got me down to 56 by the time I got to the speed limit sign. So that's what the loophole theory looks like through the Seebackroscope. And I'm facing another bloody radar trap here, but it's just a warning sign and it didn't go off at me either. So this means I can ride around in town and not have people in a 50 zone overtaking me and in a 60 zone overtaking me, and when I'm out on the highway in the 100 zone I'm a lot less angry making and irritating and frustrating for the people behind me, and I'm a lot less frightened myself every time they go past me. And I do not get stuck in those bloody double guardrail death slots. Now we're facing the 40 kilometre an hour zone for the primary school. And we've arrived at town with 78% of a battery. If I do a ride just like this and go home at unhomologated speed, it turns out that I get back home with about 42% of a battery. And if I go both ways at unhomologated speed, I get home with about 36 instead of 42. So I'm not actually straining the machine, I'm not straining the battery, and I feel a whole lot happier about the entire proceeding. And I'm optimistic that I won't have any kind of encounter with the gendarmes who think differently. And if the gendarmes don't think differently, and as long as I don't fall off at excessive speed, I shouldn't be upsetting anyone. And to be honest, I didn't actually have much of a reason to come to town today, other than to get this bloody movie out of the way, because I've been trying to make it. Like I said, this is the 4th or 5th time. So now you can have a look at the main street through the Seebackroscope. Quite a busy little street today. Recently it's been a lot quieter than this. And I think what I'm going to do will be to go up to the standing stones and have a cuppa. Smile, you're on YouTube. Have a look at the dinosaur juice filled version. Quite a pleasant toy for an old man, actually. I've got to admit, I'd love to have the money and the solar system to be able to run one of them 110 kilometre an hour Komodos. And if I could, I'd upgrade this to the 5500 watt L1E, the Sting Pro. But that's all just one of these stories. Being absolutely honest, this thing does everything I need it to do. Kilometres an hour past the Poe Rice station. Being a good little boy. Coming out of the Catholic school either at this stage. I think it's much more restful at 50 kilometres an hour, not having to worry about that grey nomad with their caravan coming up and forcing me off outside the fog line. And if they do try any stupid bloody games, I can at least outpace them for a short while, up to 75 k's. Now I'm doing 51 and he's bloody gaining on me. Let's hope he doesn't run over me in the manoeuvre. And this is the corner where you sometimes meet people coming the other way by surprise. It's the nicest little bit of twisty hilltop driving we've got in town coming up here. By this stage you're in a shared zone. You're going to get a backlit view of the town when I turn around, but anyway. %. So that's my news of the week. It has been a bit over a week since I uploaded anything. Occasionally one sort of takes a holiday from making YouTube videos, particularly the ones trying to explain what's going on in the excited status of Norte Americano, because it's gone from having 2 or 3 stupid things happening every week to 5 stupid things happening every day, and it's very difficult to figure out what the hell's going on. Okay. Right. Erg. That was a 19 kilometre trip. Takes us to 5284 kilometres. 31 minutes. Average speed 37 because of all that time on the highway. Maximum speed of 80. Right, so let's see if I can find the unpause button.
Okay, I pronounced that more or less something of a success. It now actually works. Pain in the arse to use, but it does work. But to be honest, that was pretty much the only ride that's worth doing with the Seebackroscope fitted. You get that. Sometimes you spend weeks making a bit of equipment and you only use it once. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.